today to have a special guest with us, John Livermore. John is an entrepreneur. He is a conservation specialist, and most of all, he's a trailblazer in the realm of energy efficient home building. And I say this because he has worked on an amazing house project in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and this project is so efficient that the house actually produces more energy than it needs. So what does that mean? At the end of the month, he doesn't pay an electric bill. I don't know about you, but I'd like to live in a house like that someday. It looks just like a regular old raised ranch house that you might see on any street throughout Massachusetts or throughout the country, really. So it's very unassuming. Was that one of your goals to pick that type of house to work on, or was it just because you were living in that kind of a house?
Well, we just happened to be living in it, which was fortunate because it's the kind of house that was more conducive to doing the kind of deep energy retrofitting that we were doing, where we were super insulating the outside. We had enough roof space to do a solar photovoltaic system, and then we had some yard space to do a ground-mounted solar hot water system. The house produces more renewable energy from solar energy than it uses in non-renewable energy resources like oil or natural gas. So in essence, it's a solar power plant.
So what were some of the challenges, if you don't mind sharing?
So when we described this project to the local building inspector, he looked at me like I had two heads, like I was really nuts. And only after 2 extensive conversations and a letter from our energy engineer guaranteeing that the house would not fall down, he finally gave us the building permit and actually became an ally in the project. There weren't a lot of other projects to look to, certainly not in Massachusetts and even around the country. We were really one of the first ever to do anything like this to our house.
Wow. So once you overcame that hurdle, what other challenges did you face with actually implementing your strategy?
The technique we employed is the Larson truss, where we actually extended out the exterior walls about 6 inches, and we decided to minimize construction waste that we wanted to attach those directly to the existing siding, so we didn't pull off the siding and dump it in the landfill to try to be more sustainable. That was a little bit challenging because to get the trusses plumb and straight was it took a little more work than we had originally anticipated.
So just so that I understand, this exoskeleton that you mentioned, that's like a skin on the outside of the house, right? That almost encloses it like a blanket, perhaps, you know, with insulation materials?
Exactly.
Is that what's in there?
On the Larson trusses, we sprayed in about 5 inches of closed cell foam. So we increased the R value of our wall from about R13, which is a typical wall, to R43.
Wow.
So we more than tripled the insulation value of our walls, and along with the triple pane high performance windows that we used and the increased attic insulation, we really reduced the heating and cooling loads of the house dramatically. The building components that we went with, our philosophy was kind of the limbo dance to see how low we could go. How low could we reduce our loads in the house? Heating loads, cooling loads, lighting, appliance loads. And so with the windows, we looked for the most efficient product that we could find. And we found a great product out of Canada that had triple pane, argon filled, fiberglass frame, very well insulated, great performing windows. Even these high performance windows are about R5 compared to the R43 walls.
I see. So throughout this process, did you utilize infrared thermography to help see how things are actually working out with regard to leakage standpoint?
That's a great question. That was one of the first things we did, is we took infrared pictures of the house before the renovation in the wintertime. And it was quite dramatic and sobering to see all the areas that we needed to address with insulation and air sealing.
Wow, so you can really look at the before and after and see a huge difference when you look through the lens of the infrared camera that shows you or illustrates the heat transfer, right?
Right, absolutely. And in the wintertime, we lose a lot of our radiant energy to colder walls. So say in a typical house in the wintertime in New England, the air temperature is 70 degrees. The wall temperature might be 50 degrees. So we're actually losing our radiant energy to that surface. And in doing so, we're feeling uncomfortable. In our house, in our net positive energy home, the exterior surface in the wintertime is just about what the air temperature is, about 70 degrees. So we actually feel more comfortable in the space.
What about when you have a space that's so well insulated, do you have to think about adding ventilation to make sure that you're circulating enough air for the occupants?
Absolutely, that's critical. And the myth for years had been to let the house breathe, but really houses don't know how to breathe. So you have to provide assured mechanical ventilation to provide exactly the amount of cubic feet per minute of fresh air that you need in the house to keep people comfortable and healthier. That's another thing that we found is we get less colds and viruses.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. So you said we, I assume you were living in the house with your family, right? So what did they have to say about this whole project?
Well, I was there with my 90-year-old father and my two daughters, Elise, who was 7 at the time, and Samantha, who was 9. And they were very up for the experiment. Everyone has a science background, so it was a great cooperative effort. And my daughter Samantha even made a sign that we kept up during the renovation that said Livermore Gloucester Laboratory, because we had converted our house into a laboratory for seeing how we could reduce our carbon footprint.
Wow, it seems to be very powerful, the message that you're imparting to your children, right, and others in your community when you demonstrate a way of living that uses less resources. Was this maybe behind some of your motivations to maybe have an impact on the future?
Absolutely, Paul. I think my two daughters were a major motivation for me doing this project, and really understanding globally some of the issues that we face. I felt like I needed to do something and take responsibility for creating a better future for them.
Another part of the house that I saw when I visited was this amazing garden that you've created inside what used to be the pool.
Right. Well, we did have an above-ground pool that actually leaked, and we dumped chemicals in it, and it was really quite a big pain. So we decided to get rid of that, and as part of my research into sustainability, I discovered that for every calorie that we get out of the food we eat, it takes about 10 calories of fossil fuels to produce that. So I felt, as part of our sustainability experiment, that we needed to try to grow as much food as we could. So we created this garden, and we grow carrots and onions and watermelons and lots of great things that the kids love to eat.
The other thing that I remember when I visited was seeing the solar panels. So there weren't a lot of solar panels, if I recall, in the neighborhood when I was driving to your house. Were you one of the early adopters of solar in that neighborhood?
We were an early adopter. This was 2008, and we were really the first in the neighborhood to do this. And since then, a lot of our neighbors, probably about 10 of them now, have solar panels on the roof. So it's really evolved and come a long way, and we feel like we were helped inspire some of our neighbors to do some pretty cool things.
Nice. So the solar panels were installed to take advantage of the orientation of the house, I'm assuming, right? So are they on the south side?
They're
primarily,
generally on the south side. They are a bit westerly facing,
Okay.
but not so much that it reduces our overall solar gain by more than about 5 to 10%. So we
Okay.
still, right now, are able to produce almost twice the amount of electricity that the home uses. And
Wow.
we sell the rest of it back to the utility company. The issue of snow and ice on the panels, even if snow and ice covers them in January or February for a couple of weeks, it's really at the period of time when you're producing the least amount of solar electricity anyway, because of where the sun is in the sky. So it's not an issue when you look at overall annual production.
Are there any other options today that a homeowner might be able to take advantage of that would reduce that cost?
Well, there's a 30% federal tax credit. So for anyone who buys a solar system through the end of 2016, they're basically getting 30% off the price of the system. And then individual states have some tax credits available. In Massachusetts, there's what's called SRECs, and they are cash payments for solar production for 10 years on a quarterly basis. So that, along with net metering, where you can sell your electricity back to the utility company, all together makes solar a very attractive option. And in many cases, people who install solar now with all of those benefits are seeing positive cash flow from the very first month they put the system in.
And so you have the solar helps to create energy for your electricity, and do you also use it for heating the hot water?
We actually have a separate ground-mounted solar system for the hot water.
Okay.
It provides about 70% of our annual hot water needs.
Okay. So I'm just putting all these pieces together in my mind and thinking about how did this all impact, the heart of the home, which is the heating and cooling system. What did you have before, and how was that modified as part of the project?
Right, so we had a hydro-air gas system. It's a gas boiler that feeds a coil into a duct system. And that system is still in place. The very first 2 years of our project, we used a small Danish wood stove. Tiny little stove in the basement, and it heated the entire house. So when you reduce your heating loads enough, it almost doesn't matter what you use to heat. You could heat with electricity, but your loads are so low that your costs are going to be very low as well.
Good heavens, so you're telling me that a wood stove is used to heat this house?
That's correct.
What an inspiring story. I must say, you continue to impress me with your achievements and your vision. So I want to thank you for spending time with us today on EcoLibrium TV. Nice to see you again,
Thank you very
John.
much, Paul.
Thanks a
My
lot.
pleasure.